Have you ever wondered what it sounds like in the mind of someone with narcissism? So there's well-validated thought patterns of all personality disorders because they're constant and stable over time. And a lot of times people would be really surprised at how elegant and subtle the thinking is typically in the mind of someone with narcissistic personality disorder. And the reason for this is because typically we're not going around thinking, oh, I'm going to make myself feel more grandiose than someone else. Typically, the mind has kind of an elegant way of doing things. And so for individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, their thinking actually makes a lot of sense to them. And we know from research and personal accounts that NPD thoughts can present in a variety of different ways. And oftentimes they actually don't sound as kind of extreme as people like for you to think on this app. It doesn't mean that people with NPD are going around thinking like, oh, I'm going to make sure to make myself look so much better than all these other people. Typically, that's not the pattern that presents. So I'm going to tell you some of the patterns that typically we do see in individuals with NPD, and I'm pulling this from research and from personal accounts. But there are certain patterns that typically happen in the mind of someone with NPD. And if you hear any patterns that you feel you exhibit in your own thinking, that does not mean that you have NPD. It takes a really long time to get diagnosed with a personality disorder. That is not something I do. I'm just kind of delivering information here. So if you do think that maybe you do have a personality disorder, please seek a qualified clinician. And one thing to note is that most of us see ourselves in most personality disorders because we do tend to have some defense mechanisms. That's a part of being a normal person. That doesn't mean you have a personality disorder. You have to consider that with personality disorders, you're getting the volume and the consistency over time that's different. So with some of us, we might have this like, maybe like once a week or something. With personality disorder, you're having this like most of the time, and you're having it consistent across environments and across time. So don't be scared if you hear something that is similar to what you think. So first of all, one pattern with NPD is grandiosity. That's a very common one that we know about, but it's important to notice that grandiosity doesn't always look like, oh, I'm so much better than other people. It can look like, oh, like people at work aren't as engaged as I am. They're not quite as good at presentations as I am. I'm so much more liked by my manager. It could look like, like strangers love me. Like, I can charm anyone. Like, one thing I've heard before is, I can get anyone I want. That's a very common pattern for an NPD. So it sounds quite elegant, right? It doesn't like come out and tell you like, hey, I'm better than you, but it's some subtle way of thinking you're better than other people. So it can even sound like, hey, I'm smarter than other people. Like, I don't want to be arrogant, but like I have evidence that I'm smarter than other people. It could sound like that. And there could even be those qualifying statements like, oh, like I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself, but insert grandiosity statement here. And so the second thought pattern we see with NPD is external validation dependence. And so this doesn't sound like people with NPD going around thinking like, I really need external validation today. Like, what should I do? What it sounds more like is like, gosh, like I feel really bored. Like I feel weird. Like I woke up feeling kind of sad. Like, I don't know why. Like, maybe I should get back on the dating apps. Maybe I need to apply for a different job because, like I'm not being valued here. And so it's really that mix of that difficult emotion, which they typically aren't good at recognizing as the need for validation, and the desire to move straight into action. So like I need to seek validation in whatever form possible. And so it doesn't necessarily sound like, oh, hey, I woke up today, I'm gonna seek validation. It sounds way more elegant. It sounds like, hey, something doesn't feel right. Like I don't feel good. I need to go do something to make myself feel good. And so that's kind of the pattern. So third, and this is the third out of 4 thought patterns we see in NPD, is shame avoidance. So people with NPD experience intense but suppressed shame, often without full awareness. So they typically feel like something is off, like, ugh, someone's comment just made me feel like, like they don't respect me. Like they don't value me here. Like it was weird, but like the way their tone, like the way they said it was just off, and like I didn't like that. Like I don't know what to do about it. Like I feel weird. Like I know I need to focus, but I can't focus. I need to get back to work. I need to do something, but like I can't it just keeps going in my mind. Like they said something, like that thing they said to me in that meeting, like they just like don't have respect for me. Right? And so it could even have that element of not even like having the don't respect for me part. They might not even be aware of that. It might just be like this kind of like strange feeling where you feel really bad and you feel like, I need to do something, like something's off. And this often happens in social contexts where the person feels invalidated or disrespected or less than, and it then results in a really negative feeling and often kind of an overappraisal of the situation, which please note that could also be anxiety. That doesn't necessarily have to be NPD. But that desire to avoid kind of that shame and make sure that you're better than the others, that's specific to NPD. And then the fourth thought pattern is rage and defensiveness. And so this is kind of the attack mode. This is the thing that comes after the shame typically. And so narcissistic rage isn't always loud. This is really important to understand. People often think like, oh, NPD presents as like this huge destructive thing and people are yelling and etc. It can actually be really silent, strategic, calculated. It can look really covert. I'm sure people have heard of that. So the rage and defensiveness can look very different. So some people will go into rage, some people will go into defensiveness. Obviously, the rage is a form of defensiveness. But what that sounds like is, well, you know what? Like, they're not that great anyways. And so like, why would they disrespect me? Like, look at them. Like, look at all of their flaws. Like, you know what? I'm gonna tell someone about them. Like, I'm gonna mention that they're not doing a good job on this project or something like that. Like, so it can kind of look like revenge even. So it's a form of diminishing that other person to make sure that that threat is neutralized. That's a very common pattern as well. And so it's kind of like this, like, I want to diminish whatever threat I'm perceiving. And that's the reason for the rage and the defensiveness. So it actually has a really good reason for happening. So a lot of people think that rage and defensiveness in NPD is kind of like this, like, personality flaw, but you have to consider that an individual with NPD is actually perceiving real threat to themselves. And so if you were to actually perceive this as real threat, which most of us are not, right? But an individual with NPD is, they will think that they need to become defensive. And obviously anger is a boundary setting emotion. And so that's why they enact that anger. It's a total distortion of what's happening, but in their mind, it makes sense. I was disrespected. A boundary was crossed. I need to go into that anger defensiveness mode. And the way that you can imagine it is when maybe you've actually had a scenario in your life where somebody did cross a boundary with you, like a real boundary. And that's what it feels like to an individual with NPD, is that they truly think that a boundary has been crossed. In their mind, it feels very true and it feels very real. And so when we're talking about any type of mental disorder or personality disorder, you have to understand that the way it presents is not the way that you see in movies or on social media. Usually it presents like a person that has very subtle thinking that sounds very true to them in their minds, because the mind is typically very elegant and it needs to protect the ego. And so we are the heroes of our own stories. So even with someone with NPD, it sounds really good in their head.